Hey everybody, it's LaRonda and I'm back with another video, and today's video is going to be a little short, or maybe not so short, I'm not sure. Story time about a man that I met who is here on the island from Germany, and we went on a date, and I'm going to tell you about that date. Now, if you know anything about me, I have always been fascinated with people from other countries. In college, I majored in international business, which put me into classes and things with a lot of international students. I took foreign languages, I took French, I took Japanese in college. I live here in Puerto Rico now, so I learned a lot of Spanish. And so I've always been fascinated with other cultures. I really enjoy traveling around the world and stuff like that. So it's no surprise that whenever I see someone from another country on a dating site, especially if they're here either on the island or wherever, whatever city I happen to be in, chances are probably pretty good that I will swipe on that person. So this was no exception. I saw this guy, and he was one of these people. He had one picture up, which is usually a red flag and usually a swipe left, because I don't do one picture people or people with like limited information on their profile usually, because I don't know if I can connect with them. But this particular guy had one picture and it looked okay, and a little blurb that said, you know, he had been living in a few different countries, but that he was from Germany. So I was like, okay, let me just see what is this German doing here in Puerto Rico. So I decided to swipe on him. We matched and we started talking over text, of course, and he seemed really chatty. You know, he was telling me about his life and how he had just moved here and just sharing random information with me, which I kind of liked, especially when in this day and age on these dating sites, it's hard to get words out of people sometimes. You know, you ask them a question, they'll either give you a one-word answer or just answer your question. They don't ask you anything back. It's like pulling teeth to have a conversation with people, but this guy wasn't like that, so it was able to like just flow. Now, we talked a lot over text, and this was when the elections were still going on and all that stuff. So then we would spend time chatting about politics, and especially him being from another country, he's still, you know, trying to really understand about American politics and all of that, even though he had been living in the States for a while. But still, you know, it's different. It's a different system, and if you've grown up somewhere else your whole life and trying to get used to this system, it takes time. So during this time, we would sit down. One of our phone dates, because mind you, we're still in the midst of coronavirus, happened to be where we sat and watched one of the debates together, the first Trump-Biden debate, and just chatted throughout it. And then once it was over, we did a video chat, and that was our first time doing a video chat. Now, that whole week before, we had been chatting, you know, through text. I mean, just all day, every day, chatting over text. And it was really nice because it was the first time in a bit that I had somebody to be just texting with all the time. So I was really excited about it because I felt like we were sharing a lot of stuff and learning a lot about each other. But then after we had this video chat after the debates, that's when I realized that maybe that chatteriness was more of a curse than a blessing in real life, because we got on the video call and he was just talking, and I could hardly get a word in edgewise. And so then it was like, you know, it's easy to kind of overlook that or not see it as being like invasive or whatever when you're doing it over text, because there's nobody to stop you from getting that word in. But when you're doing it in person and you're trying to get a word in edgewise, that's a whole other story. So it sort of turned me off a little bit. But then there was the other part of me that was like, well, maybe it's just, you know, his way and he's maybe nervous or whatever, and maybe that's what's going on here. So, you know, we'll keep the conversation going. I was slightly less excited about meeting him after that, but I was like, okay, you know, he seems smart, he's an economist and all this stuff. So he had a lot of things in his head and a lot of interesting stuff about him that we discussed over text. So I still wanted to meet him in person. So we made plans that weekend to meet up. And because we had talked so much, I felt really comfortable, and I knew that he had just gotten here, so he didn't have a car yet. So I was like, okay, I will make an exception this time, and I'll go, you know, down to where he lives or whatever, where he got his new apartment, and pick him up, and we'll go somewhere close by, you know, to where he lives and all that. So I did that. And okay, so like, as you know, now everybody's wearing masks and stuff like that. And so this guy, he's pretty tall, 6'3", kind of a bigger guy. And he had on like a pink shirt, kind of like a pink button-up shirt, not like bright pink, but you know, something nice, pale pink, some jeans, some shoes. And he had on this clown mask. So like, it was one of those masks that covers your face from here on down, you know, to the neck. Kind of like the one that I mentioned about in the grocery store thing, but it had like a scary clown face on it. So here's this big, bald, 6'3" German guy with this scary clown mask on. It was a little bit creepy. So I was like, okay. So he comes over across the street to where I'm waiting for him, and he's sweating profusely. Now, this was a cloudy day. It wasn't like hot sun outside. It was the late afternoon. And so it wasn't that hot, but like, I mean, this guy was sweating bullets, okay? So remember that, because it'll be important later. So we get in the car, we go to the restaurant, and we sit down, and we stay at this restaurant for about, I think, 4 hours. 4 or 5 hours, something like that, just talking. But mind you, it was mostly him doing all the talking. You know, I would ask him something, he would start talking and just go and 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 talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And it just kept going. And I just was like exhausted by the time this thing, you know, by the time we got our food and everything. He was busy talking. And you know how when someone's talking and maybe their mouth is kind of dry and they get this like collection of like white stuff coming across, that was happening, and it was really grossing me out. And I'm like, oh my God. And he just wouldn't stop talking. He just would not stop talking. So finally he went to the bathroom. I think he must have realized that his mouth was getting dry or something, and he went to the bathroom and cleaned up, and then that was the end of that. But man, by that time I was already kind of turned off because we were eating and that was all going on and everything. So anyway, I decided that, you know, we would leave there, and you know, he had mentioned something about going getting some more drinks or whatever. So I took him to this other place. It was outdoors where we could just walk around, and I could show him something nice that maybe he could go to later on, you know, since he lives not too far from there or whatever. And so we went there and we started walking around, and he starts sweating again, but like even worse than before. I mean, his shirt was soaked. He had sweat beads all over his head and face and everything. And it was just, oh my God, like I thought he was gonna die. He said, you know, at one point we needed to stop, you know, and he needed to rest or whatever. And he was just sweating bullets, and it was like he was getting sick. And plus the other thing is he smoked, so he lit up a couple of cigarettes, which was also kind of a turn off for me. I don't really like cigarette smoke. Thankfully I was wearing my mask, so that kind of, you know, kept the cigarette smoke out, or from me having to breathe it as much, but still, you know, it's like a turn off a little bit for me. So Anyway, we sat down, we got him a place to kind of sit down and cool off. Like first we went to the bathrooms, and like outside of the bathrooms, there's a place where you can just kind of sit, and there was a little bit of a breeze there. So we let him sit down for a minute, and then I told him, I was like, you know what, we should probably just leave. Let me get you home before you pass out. Because again, he's 6'3", probably a good 280 pounds or 250, or I don't know what men's weights are, but he was a big guy. So if he happened to pass out, it's going to be very hard for 5'4" or 5'5" me to pick him up off the ground. Okay. So I'm like, let's get you home before this turns into a full-on disaster. So we got him back to the car. He said he was feeling much better, you know, once we got into the air conditioner and all that. But I'm like, still, let's get, you know, back to your apartment so I can drop you off and you can go on about your merry way. So I dropped him back off. We sat there in the car and talked a little bit more. But again, still, I was still so exhausted because, like, I don't feel like in the whole time that we were there that he asked me very many questions about myself. Like, when I could get a word in, you know, about maybe something he said or whatever, to ask him a question about it, to expand on something he said, he would do that, but he would never really ask me anything about me. So I felt like he wasn't really into getting to know about me. He just liked telling me about his job and his work and what kind of stuff he does and who he knows and his life over in the other places that he's lived before and blah, blah, blah. And I was just kind of over it. And I was really pretty exhausted by the end of the night. So around 9:30, I told him, like, hey, listen, you know, I got to get ready to go. It's curfew time. Normally, I probably wouldn't have even cared that much if I had really liked him. You know, I wouldn't have had a problem sticking around a little bit longer to just chat with him in the car until, you know, it was time for me to go. But I was so exhausted from just listening to him talk the whole time. So, yeah, I think that, yeah, in general, I love dating foreign men. I love getting to know them, learning about their lives and stuff. But, you know, I want a man who's also equally as fascinated about getting to know me in my life. So this was one of those moments where dating a foreign man just kind of went all the way wrong. And it just didn't work out the way I had hoped. And we texted a little bit after that because another debate came up, and we did a little bit of texting after that. But eventually it just kind of fizzled out because I think he and I both kind of knew that there was no love connection there. And even though it was nice when he first got to the island to have somebody to talk to and whatever, I think there just wasn't enough chemistry there, especially from my part, for me to continue because, you know, it's important to me to have a give and take in the conversation. So anyway, it was good while it lasted. I was kind of disappointed that it didn't turn out better, but whatever, you know. So I will continue on my saga of dating foreign men as they pop up into my life. So I haven't given up on them completely, but this was just one of those times where it didn't go so well. So thank you for watching, everybody, and I hope to see you in the next video. Happy dating, everybody. Bye bye.